Question number 4. An investor purchased 300 units of a mutual fund at rupees 12.25 per unit on 31st December 2009. As on 31st December 2010, he has received rupees 1.25 as dividend and rupees 1 as capital gains distribution per unit. Okay. We need to calculate the return on the investment if NAV as on 31st December 2010 is rupees 13. This is the first bit, and the second bit is we need to calculate the return on investment as on 31st December 2010 if all dividends and capital gains distributions are reinvested. They are reinvested into additional units of fund at rupees 12.5 per unit. So if you see, the first bit is same as problem number 3 and second bit is just an addition to it. So first let us solve problem number 4 and bit number 1. Okay. And then we will look into second bit. 4, 1. Okay. Given that opening NAV, closing NAV, distributions, dividend, capital gains. So what are the values? Rupees 12.25, rupees 13, rupees 1, rupees 1.25, and number of units purchased on 31st December 2009 is 300. Okay. Now, what is holding period return? Holding period return is nothing but closing NAV minus opening NAV plus distributions per unit divided by opening NAV. Now, plotting these values here, we get rupees 30 minus rupees 12.25 plus rupees 1 plus rupees 1.25 divided by rupees 12.25. Sorry. This is 1.25 and this is 1. So, upon calculation, we get the holding period return as 13 minus 12.25 plus 1.25 plus 1 divided by 12.25. So, we get 24.49 as the holding period return. Therefore, the return on investment is 24.49. Right? This is the first bit. We will draw a timeline now. December 2009, when distributions are made, and this is 31st December 2010. What is the NAV? NAV at this point in time is 12.25 and here it is 13 and they are reinvested at 12.5. So at that point in time, the NAV is 12.5, right? So what is the opening balance of units? Opening balance of units. Okay, it is 0, right? And units purchased. It is 300 here, right? So what is the closing balance at this stage? It is 0 plus 300, that is 300, right? What is the opening balance at this stage? It is 300, right? How many units are purchased? So first we have to find out what is the amount that we have received. So it is rupees 1 plus rupees 1.25 into 300, right? This is what we received, okay? And now we are investing back into the same mutual fund at rupees 12.5 per unit. So this total divided by 12.5 is what the additional units purchased will be, right? So it is 1 plus 1.25, that is 2.25 into 300, that is 675 is what we received in total. And when we are dividing this by 12.5, we get 54 additional units. So 300 plus 54 is 354 is the closing balance of the units. And here the opening balance is 354 and there are no units purchased at this time. So the closing balance is 354 units, right? So now we need to find out the return generated. So what is the return generated? The return generated will be what we have as on 31st December 2010 minus what we have as on 31st December 2009, right? So what do we have? We have 354 units, right? Into NAV is 13 that time, 13 per unit. 354 units into rupees 13 per unit minus 300 units into rupees 12.25 per unit. That is 354 into 13, that is rupees 4602 minus 300 into 12.25, that is 3675. 3675. So 4602 minus 3675 will give us 927, right? This is the return. And what is the return percentage? Return percent is 927. And what is your initial investment? 3675. So it is 927 by 3675. That is 25.22%, right? So this is how we will solve it. So what have we done? We have multiplied 354 by rupees 13 and we subtracted 300 into rupees 12.25 in order to find out the return, and we divided this entire thing by 300 into rupees 12.25, right? So what is this? This is nothing but closing units, and this is nothing but closing NAV. And what is this? Opening units, and this is opening NAV. So What is the formula that needs to be used to find out the return generated? It is holding period return in reinvestment scenario is closing units into closing NAV minus opening units into opening NAV divided by opening units into opening NAV. So this is the formula that we are going to use to find out the holding period return percentage in case of reinvestment scenario. Let us solve the second bit. Reinvestment case. First, what is given? NAV at the time of reinvestment is rupees 12.5 per unit, and this is given. What is the additional units purchased? Additional units is equal to total distributions, that is rupees 1 plus rupees 1.25 into 300 divided by NAV at the time of reinvestment, that is 12.5. Upon calculation, we get 1 plus 1.25 into 300, that is 675 by 12.5. We get 54. So, closing units is equal to opening units plus additional units, that is 300 plus 54, that is 354. Right? Now, holding period return. In reinvestment scenario is closing units into closing NAV minus opening units into opening NAV divided by opening units into opening NAV. When we plot down the values, we get 354 into rupees 13, 300 into rupees 12.25 by 300 into rupees 12.25. Upon calculation, we get 354 into 13, that is 4602 minus 300 into 12.25, that is 3675 divided by rupees 3675. Solving this, we will get 4602 minus 3675, that is 927 divided by 3675. So it is 25.22%. 25.22%. Therefore, the return on investment is 25.22 when distributions are reinvested. Okay. So this is the solution to the problem. Problem number 4 is done. Next, see problem number 5. SBI Mutual Fund has a NAV of rupees 8.5 at the beginning of the year. At the end of the year, NAV increases to rupees 9.1. Meanwhile, fund distributes rupees 0.9 as dividend and rupees 0.75 as capital gains. What is the fund's return during the year? And had these distributions been reinvested at an average NAV of rupees 8.75, assuming 200 units were purchased originally, what is the return? So this is exactly same like question number 4, right? So even this is done. Also, we will see question number 15. A mutual fund having 300 units has shown its NAV of rupees 8.75 and rupees 9.45 at the beginning and at the end of the year respectively. The mutual fund has given two options. Pay rupees 0.75 per unit as dividend and rupees 0.6 per unit as capital gain, or these distributions are to be reinvested at an average NAV of rupees 8.65 per unit. What difference would it make in terms of return available and which option is preferable? This is exactly same as question 4 and question 5. Only that we need to calculate the difference between the returns. Calculate difference between returns and comment which option has higher return. Okay. Otherwise, this is exactly same as question 4 and 5. So we are skipping this as well. Skip.